Welcome to the Germinate podcast, where agriculture, business, and innovation take root and thrive. I'm Joe Sampson, and with nearly 2 decades of experience in agricultural equipment and scaling businesses, I'm here to bring you actionable insights, inspiring stories, and strategic advice. Whether you're an industry veteran or just starting out, this podcast is your guide to cultivating ideas, expanding your knowledge, and growing your venture. So let's get started and germinate your path to success. All right, folks, welcome back to the Germinate podcast. I guess today's guest has probably seen more ag resumes than CNH has parts in their parts catalog, right?
Very possible.
Very possible, yeah. I've got Mark Waschek with Ag One Source. Mark and I met through the powers of LinkedIn, which is such a valuable resource for those of you that aren't out there on it. It's definitely worth getting on there because that's exactly how Mark and I met. And yeah, I mean, your introduction I just said it. You've probably seen a lot of ag resumes. So tell everybody what Ag One Source does and a little history around it. So welcome aboard, Mark.
Thanks, Joe. Yeah, Ag One Source is an executive recruiting organization in the agricultural industry. We also have a sister company, Career One Source, which is non-ag. That was started primarily because we had so many organizations that had roles that didn't necessarily require ag, and we still wanted to support the companies we worked with, so we started Career One Source. Prior to recruiting, my career was in production ag. I spent about 15 years in the cooperative system with Senex Land O'Lakes, and Senex Harvest States, anything from agronomy, sales, location management on up to sales management and marketing within the different commodities of those organizations. But I've been with the Ag One Source and Career One Source organizations for about 20 years. I'm currently the president of the organization. And as you said, even though I'm the president, I still look at resumes and talk to candidates and companies every single day. So there aren't many stories I haven't heard, but you never know. Somebody always surprises me once in a while.
Yeah, it's funny. I think I said this when we kind of had our talk last time, but I don't know. I'm gonna date myself here. I graduated high school in 1995, so in those years, it was pre-internet, pre-cell phone, pre-everything. Heck, it was even really pre. I mean, we had resumes, but we'd find our jobs in newspaper classifieds, and I don't know. I almost feel like the industry, not just in agriculture, but in careers in general, has changed so radically over the course of the last 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years for me. And I think we were kind of sold a bill of goods back in those days, like, get a job, work your way up, keep working your way up, put money in your 401k, retire and die. Things have changed quite a bit. I'm guessing you've seen some radical changes over the years. Talk about maybe some of those changes, how you guys have adapted through the years, and maybe where you see this going in the future.
Yeah, I'm like you, right? When I distinctly remember when I applied to, at that time, Senex Land O'Lakes, I had to go to Kinko's to find the coolest resume paper
Right.
I could find.
I hear
Right?
you. The card stock and the perfect
Exactly.
color.
Yep.
Yeah, I remember.
It had to be cool, right? And
Yep.
then you paid your 10 cents to print it. But yeah, so I think that's where it has evolved, but probably what's really evolved more so than just how people find jobs, it's more about the jobs and the relationships between the employer and the employee that have probably evolved the most, that has impacted the way that people find jobs, right? When we talked last time, we talked about, it was COVID created a mass exodus in careers, but it also created the opportunity for more people than ever to work from home. Organizations are now trying to get people back. That's a whole cultural challenge. And,
Sure.
not to go down the path of can you collaborate remote or not. My feeling on that whole thing is it's not an issue of work ethic or effort. It's actually an issue of trust, right? Because we both know lots of incredibly successful organizations that have remote employees. In fact, we are one of them, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have been remote from the start. We were remote before there was even webcams,
Okay.
right? So we were doing it with conference calls, and yes, we had meetings annually for sure, sometimes quarterly, where people are able to see each other. But if you have a culture of trust, remote work actually works very well. It's when companies struggle with that, and it's not about are they getting their work done. It's I don't know if they're getting their work done because I can't physically see them or touch them, that the issues start to arise. And I think that's probably impacted talent management and talent acquisition anything more than anything else, because so many people that have experienced that level of trust in remote work are frustrated when they interview with a company and they shift directions on that model.
Yeah, I bet. That's an interesting word, trust. I think, when we all look for careers, yeah, everybody always thinks, well, it's the money, it's this, how much am I gonna get paid a week, every other week, every month? And yeah, clearly we all go to work because we want to get paid. But there's so much more to that when you actually get in the seat and you realize, okay, this is what I'm doing. And the word trust is something that I think is pretty darn valuable in any place of employment. And you know when you have it, but you also know when you don't, and that's the scary part. Like, how do you break free from that, and how do you understand, is there a way to get it back? And so, yeah, I think that's super intelligent that you bring that up, and I look at it like this: if you're executing, if you're doing your job and you're executing and you're providing a value, who cares if you're sitting in your office or if you're in Guam? The goal is to execute.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Exactly. It's interesting you mentioned that other part of trust, and especially the supervisors. There's been over the last 20 years, there's been tons of studies done that come up with almost the exact same result. The Saratoga Institute, Google, other major companies and services have done a survey on why people leave, right? And it's interesting because it always comes back somewhere between 89 to 95% of managers will say my best employee left because of money. 85 to 90% of employees will say they left because of their supervisor. It wasn't about the money, right?
Yeah,
Highly aligned when you look at the numbers, highly disaligned when you look at the individuals, right? And it's not, and I think the challenge is that managers um, go to the conversation they had with the employee. Oh my gosh, you're resigning. What's wrong? What can we fix? And the employee is typically nice and says, oh no, don't worry. It's not you, it's me. This is a great opportunity. I'm going to be making more money. There's nothing you can do about it. Love my time here, right?
right, right,
It's the
right.
high school breakup, right?
Yeah,
So then, but what really happened was, yes, they are leaving for more money, but truthfully, they didn't wake up one day and say, you know what? I need to change jobs because I need more money. What they said was, I have to get out of here. But since I'm gainfully employed, I'm going to find a job that pays me more money because there's no sense in it isn't that bad. I can stick it out for a while until I find that higher paying job. So
right.
they're both true, but the reality is the relationship between the supervisor and the employee is what drives retention or turnover more than
Yeah.
anything else, right?
And man, it's hard. It's hard when you're in a job where you're kind of just you just said it. You said, "Well, it's not bad enough for me to leave." It's
Mm-hmm.
like, well, that's not a very reassuring,
Exactly.
argument to stick around. And but yeah, it's tough because you got a family to feed. You've got kids that are going to college. You got kids that are in activities. You got this life, and so the thought of, "Oh, no, I gotta go find another job or maybe even change careers altogether or break into something." I'm guessing you deal with that a lot when people make that initial call to you guys.
Mm-hmm. On both sides, right?
Yeah, right.
It is both employers and employees that recognize there's a problem and want to start the process. Because there are employers that see disengagement, see lower, well, more importantly, they may not recognize the disengagement, they recognize the lower production, not realizing that they themselves may be the issue, but they're
Yeah,
putting it on the employees. So they put us on call to say, look, sometime in the next few months, I'm going to be putting these employees on a PIP program. Odds are they aren't going to make it through. Let's get started on the
yeah.
replacement.
Tell everybody what a PIP program is. I know what it is, but some people might not.
Most organizations, they may not call it a PIP, but it's basically a performance enhancement situation where you say, okay, I'm giving you 30, 60, 90 days to turn your sales territory around. So we're going to meet weekly and we're going to go through this process. But if you aren't at this milestone by day 30 or day 60, um, we're going to have to find an alternative solution.
I don't know if there's a percentage of this, but you might be able to provide some insight. When
Mm-hmm.
people get PIFs, or more or less, the way I understand, you nailed it, but more or less, it's like saying, Joe, we're going to put you on a PIP. You got 30 days to get your act together and
Mm-hmm.
start, or you got 30 days to start performing. And if you don't, you're out of here. What
Mm-hmm.
percentage do you think? I don't know if you can rate this, but what percentage do you think of people that get PIPs stay versus get shown the door?
Probably about the same percentages that I told you otherwise, right?
Yeah.
Maybe 10% stay at
Yeah,
the end of
I
it,
bet. I bet.
right?
Yeah. So it seems kind of like, why are we doing these pips? Why not just have a real conversation with people? And,
Mm-hmm.
those sometimes are things that get lost in the confusion over the past 30 years, at least that
Mm-hmm.
I see in my career. It's, let's just have a real conversation. Let's just sit down and talk to each other like adults. And I get it. We might not, this might not make sense to have you be employed here anymore. And maybe it's not the perfect place. Let's talk about it. Let's be real about it instead of,
Right.
there's all these procedures and processes that everybody follows. And for the most part, the result's the same anyways, right?
And I think what organizations don't realize is they're so close to actually flipping it all the way around. If they have that process in place, the reality is you don't wait until there's a problem. You actually do that on a regular basis, right? You talk about the numbers, you talk about the results so that if things aren't going well, the employee is actually coming to you to say, "Look, I'm off target. Help me get there," as opposed to waiting until you see an employee off target, then calling them and saying, "What the heck, you're off target. Now we got to
Yeah.
fix this," right?
Yeah.
The process is not that different. It's just that you make it more of an ongoing conversation as opposed to only pulling that file out when there's a problem.
Yeah.
Very different.
Yeah, totally different, and just sometimes those, like, that's what I've kind of tried to figure out here over the course of the last 4 or 5 months is just, let's boil things down to be pretty simple again. Let's just,
Mm-hmm.
I liken it to the Vince Lombardi, speech that he gave initially where he said, "Gentlemen, or boys, whatever, boys, this is a football,
Mm-hmm.
all right? Let's forget about all the other stuff for right now. This is a football, and the goal is, let's start with that." And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes less is more. We all know the cliches, but, yeah, there's some organizations out there that really dive deep into all these things, and I think it as an end result, the chaos and confusion it creates is sort of unknown, and really the
Mm-hmm.
only one that hurts is both the employer and the employee, right?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah,
Definitely.
yeah, it's just a little, it can be a little messy. So, what do you think? Do companies come to you, or do employees come to you, or is it a version of both?
Both
Okay.
usually. In most cases, the larger portion of our business is driven by organizations that need assistance with their talent solutions. We do a lot of work with candidates coming directly to us, but in
Mhm.
the end, more often than not, we're aligning them with one of the employers that is looking for a talent solution at that time. There is a small um, there is a small portion of our business where there are highly talented people that need to change jobs for good reasons, right? Maybe it's to get back home to take care of aging parents, or maybe
Sure.
the organization is going through a restructure and the role is going to be eliminated, where we can actually say, look, I know organizations that have roles similar to this. I don't know if they need them or not. So we will proactively start talking to our connections in the industry to say if they have something coming up. And honestly, in agriculture right now, high probability one of those organizations is going to have a retirement in the next 6 to 12 months that they need to address anyway. So we can proactively do that. And then it becomes a little bit of a timing issue. But yeah, we do some of that as well.
What are some things that you think companies should do, uh, before they post a job opening? Are there some what do you wish they understood before they posted a job opening?
I would say that most organizations fail if they take a look at the job description and says, yeah, that's good enough, and then post it.
Okay.
and not really defining what exactly they're looking for. And what I'm getting at is most job descriptions um, say what you do. A lot of job descriptions say the qualifications you must have.
Mhm.
Um, must have this, must have that. Those are all, I call them the knockout bullet points, really. You take away 50% of the market in candidates with every bullet point in the must have section, right?
Right, right.
Um, what they fail to do as a group, and I'm saying as a group, and it doesn't matter if it's an entry level sales role or the CEO, um, because I have this challenge with boards of directors who should know better.
Mhm.
The one thing that organizations fail to do before they post a position and before they start interviewing is truly define the expectations of the first year and how they want them to do it, right?
Yeah.
So they may say there's an expectation of add $100,000 in sales, right? Well, do you want them to get one customer that's 100,000, or do you want them to get 100 customers that are 1,000? Do you want them to drop the price and sell it? Do you want them to sell value? There's and the reason I bring those up is the style of person to do that job, the way the company wants, can be very, very different depending on where they came from. The resume could say consistently added $100,000 a year in sales, right? And that person is 100% over the target and aligned with the job description. But how they do it, if it doesn't align with the how the company operates and truly how they're going to measure success, it's going to be a massive failure. And so many organizations go through that interview process literally reading the resume in the interview
Mhm.
process, focused in on, hey, this person consistently added 100,000. So they may ask questions. So did you really do that? What did you do the year before? What did you do next? Where are you at today? Not digging into the how and how they're going to measure the results. And that's where the turnover comes in so fast. And I think that's a big part of why agriculture suffers from a much faster turnover rate than other industries, is because organizations are so excited in a talent short market. When you have a candidate whose qualifications perfectly align on paper, but they miss the step of the how and the what they're going to measure every time.
That's interesting. You said a couple of things there. You said agriculture has much more turnover than maybe other industries, which definitely I want to touch on. But you also said sometimes, the number chasing game is interesting. Add $100,000 in sales. Well, you can put that in your resume, but there's about a million different ways to add $100,000 in sales. And
Exactly.
and especially in today's world with AI, and a lot of folks are probably using ChatGPT to create a resume, and also the folks on the other end are submitting resumes into ChatGPT, and they can match perfectly. But if you're looking to add $100,000 in sales in the OEM, equipment world, let's say. Well, this person might not have any experience in agricultural OEMs, for instance, and that's a whole different ball of wax, and so, yeah, talk a little bit about that and how to marry those things up, but also I'd like to hear your take on why you think agriculture is suffering for retention versus some other
Mm-hmm.
industries.
Okay. Well, I'll touch on the first part.
Yeah.
The way I'm not going to say we've cracked the nut at Ag One Source, but we have found that if organizations focus on what we call the four pillars, their success of a hire goes up dramatically.
Okay.
And the four pillars are culture, style,
Yep.
expectations, we call it performance profile, and skills. In agriculture, being a technical industry, most organizations go right to skills and experience, right? It's the resume issue that we just
Yeah,
talked about,
exactly.
right? If you're going to hire an agronomist, you want to make sure that they can actually identify weeds, because you may or may not have the training resource to teach them that. So you focus in on that, right?
Sure, sure.
The reality is, kind of like we were talking about earlier with trust, culture is so incredibly overlooked. It's amazing, right? And part of it's because a lot of organizations, if I ask them, how would you describe their culture? They can't, right? It's something that is really gushy that a lot of people in agriculture don't want to talk about or say, well, it's always been this way. It ties into the challenges that we have with generational gaps, right? I'm going back. Granted, the boomer millennial issue is now out of the market, but
Sure.
that was when that whole thing came about. A lot of it was actually not about work ethic. It was actually about cultural differences and expectations
Yeah.
more than
Yeah.
just work ethic, right?
Sure.
So so the if an employee, doesn't matter how big of a rock star salesperson they are, if they can actually hit 200,000 instead of 100,000 consistently and the right way, if they don't align with the culture of the company, it's still going to fail.
Do you see that, and I don't mean to interrupt, I love this. Do you see that culture could be answered in a lot of different ways inside one company? An executive team might say the culture is exactly how, in a sense, they defined it, but you talk to lower level people and they're like, "No, no, 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 that's not at all what this culture is." Do you see that a lot?
Exactly.
Yeah,
A
yeah.
lot, right? Actually, when I've worked directly with boards of directors in particular, or even senior leadership teams, I ask permission before we even start the search to interview
Yeah,
employees.
it's a good idea.
And because of exactly that. And a lot of my questions aren't about expectations, it's about culture. It's like how, you know, I guarantee every senior leader you talk to says they have great communication. Also guarantee they do not, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Um, but it's the perception of what is the definition of great communication, and maybe they feel they're doing everything they need to, but the employees are looking for something extra. So, how the communication, how expectations are set, how underperformance is managed, um, all of all of those types of things are so easy to actually define if you look at a bullet list in a culture,
yeah,
but people try and make it more than it really is. But at the end of the day, a good person wants to know what's expected of me from a communication, and if I have a problem, how is that addressed? How is my performance going to be managed? How are my expectations going to be managed? And does this organization have a track record of helping me grow?
yeah.
When you look at those things, that covers a lot, not everything. Um, but most companies will go back to, oh, we're a great team. Well, what's the definition of team for you as a leader versus an employee? It may not actually be
And
aligned.
yeah, and what in the hell
So,
does that mean? And
right.
do you think a company's culture can change? Have you seen that?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. Right.
It changed
Um,
for the better and changed for the worse, I'm guessing?
exactly. I mean, at the end of the day, the most senior employee, the CEO, is the culture champion. It may not
Mhm.
be on their list of to-dos, but the reality is they are, whether they want to be or not, because the tone that they set drives down. Now, you have
Right.
situations where there may be people in the middle that are really good buffers, but that's a high stress job and they burn out fast. If you are dealing with a cultural shift that isn't right at the top and you are doing everything you can to keep your employees engaged below you, that's a really bad place to be, and that's pretty stressful. But the leadership team, and in particular the CEO or the president, really drives that culture by how they act, how they treat people, how they expect the rest of their leadership team to act, and it can shift. And I think where it really comes through is when in the ag industry in particular, we have big cycles in economy and the ag
Sure.
economy and the financials, and good organizations don't have to change their culture, but in what I will tell you is more often than not, when I see cultural shifts in how things are done, um, that's a sign of potential issues within the leadership team. I'm not going to say weakness, but if they shift their culture to deal with an economic issue, that's a problem. Your culture shouldn't have to shift. Your culture should actually be driven to solve the problem, right? Versus changing the culture.
Yeah. And all businesses, not just ag, go through cycles. I mean, ag is a
Mm-hmm.
big cycle, and the standard
Mm-hmm.
deviation between the peak and valley is a long line, but
Mm-hmm.
all businesses go through shifts and cycles. I mean, my gosh, not everybody out there's Apple, but even Apple's probably they don't grow 10% every year. Some years it's probably 7%, and some years it's probably 17%. And so,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's that ebbs and flows that really I think someone presented it to me years ago. It's like, you build a crew in rough waters, not when they're smooth and calm. Anybody can do
Exactly.
that. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly. Definitely, definitely.
Yeah, culture's a tough one because it's kind of a buzzword today, but I
Mm-hmm.
always and I'm with you, man. I think it starts with the top and it's contagious from the top. That's what some leaders don't realize is that your behavior and the way you react to things and the way you overreact to things potentially or underreact to things is contagious throughout the entire company because it drops to your leadership team, it drops to their employees and all the way on down to, the lowest level member on that floor or in that organization. So, culture is a tough one to figure out because I asked if it can change and you just said a lot of it's the CEO. Well, it's hard to get CEOs to change sometimes, they're
Exactly.
stubborn mules.
Exactly. And it takes a strong leadership team to point out that in tough times, cultures tend to drift um, because you start tolerating things you normally wouldn't. It's like, yeah, do whatever you got to do to get it done because we need revenue or we need this or we need that, right? And I
Yeah,
think
sure.
um, what you tolerate, you're actually accepting and you're showing the rest of the organization, yeah, I know that guy broke the rules, but guess what? He made a sale, so that's okay. No, it's not, right?
Yeah,
Because you just changed the tone
yeah.
for what's acceptable and what's not.
What you
So,
tolerate, you're accepting. I love
mm-hmm,
that. That's a
mm-hmm,
bumper sticker, Mark. That should be
mm-hmm.
the branding for your next,
I didn't come up with it, but I don't know who to give credit to, but yeah, it stuck
well,
with me, right?
take
So,
credit. So
exactly.
so talk about style. That's your next,
Right.
kind of pillar.
That is that is easy to identify, but just as easily overlooked. And so the example I like to use is an easy one, but it can be in any role in an organization. But let's say you have an organization that needs to hire a salesperson.
Mhm.
Um, they have, let's say they need to hire two salespeople, actually. You have one situation where they have an expansion territory that has no customers. Another territory is actually their largest, most profitable territory that they need to replace somebody who's going to be retiring at the end of the year.
Yeah.
The style of the individual to knock on doors all day, have no customer base to build from, is a very different person than the person you're going to want to come in to actually retain, to take over those good relationships and retain that business because the odds of growth through customer acquisition are low. A lot of the growth in that territory is going to come from your current customers growing, you growing as a result of your current customers growing,
Yeah, right,
right?
amen. Yeah.
So one of them, high level of customer service, high level of patience, high level of doing whatever you need to do to enable the success of your customers. The other one is hard charging, driven, banging on doors, not afraid to hear no. They are totally different styles of people. But I
Yes.
guarantee both of those territories have exactly the same job description, right?
That's I
It, it is
100%.
it is a sales territory manager in our company, and that is the job description for a sales territory manager, right?
Yeah. And
And
we
that's
wrote, you
where,
gotta have this amount of experience, you gotta have this amount of, proven growth, and yep,
hmm
exactly. Yep.
and that goes back to the style is easily overlooked because somebody's resume would say they can do everything you've listed on that job description, but this is the how, right? How they acquired that revenue is very different. And how they and the environment that they will succeed in, regardless of what their track record was with the previous employer.
Sure.
Um, they could fail. And you see it all the time where organizations are so excited because they may have taken the top sales rep from a competitor, but all too often it ends up in disaster. It becomes a 1 year tick mark on somebody's resume because it doesn't work out. Because the either the employee isn't happy or the employer isn't happy or both, and it's because the way that person grew the business doesn't align. If you would take that hard charging person and put them into that high market share area, it's not that they aren't going to provide a level of service to their customers, but they're going to be itchy to grow business by calling on new people. And by doing that, they may actually hit numbers, but they're going to pay less and less and less attention to the top clients over time because they're more driven to get new business.
Yeah,
And
and
vice
then
versa.
yeah,
You put a high market share type of person into a low market share territory, they're going to go bonkers because they have no friends to talk to. They have nobody to help, or they will cling to low value clients because they want to listen,
yep. Yep,
right?
exactly. They wanna build that relationship. That's
Mm-hmm.
what they're used to. They're used to longer sales cycles, and there's so many different avenues across agriculture, and specifically, I feel like we're picking on salespeople, but and, if you're selling direct to a grower, if you're selling to a dealer, if you're selling to an OEM, if you're selling to a supplier, there's so many different levels of that, and some sales guys, I call them hunters, they just like to go out and kill stuff, and then go on and kill something else. And the grooming of that, the finding the spot, the planting the food plot, and then actually taking that after that kill and prepping it so you can actually utilize the meat. That's not what they're good at. They're not good at stuff like that. They just want to give them a gun and let them go shoot something. And
Exactly.
uh, so yeah, that's awesome you guys focus on that. I mean, that's a huge lesson that everybody should focus on. It's not 1, 2 things are the same. You gotta differentiate them, and style, man, I love it. That's a good pillar. What was the next one?
The, n-
Expectations?
yeah, we call it performance profile. And what it comes down to is how are you going to measure performance? Specifically,
Mhm.
when you sit down with this employee at their 1 year annual review, what do they need to accomplish for you to say you did a great job? Truly, what do they need to accomplish? It may actually be a sales number, and I hope there's numbers attached to these things, but it really defines how are you going to measure success. And what happens in that conversation is more often than not, organizations initially will say things that aren't that important in the first year. They're more important over 2 or 3 years. But really, at the end of the day, um, unless it's a situation where you have a fire, a dumpster fire going on, and that's very specific, right?
Mhm.
Which is fine. We deal with that a lot too. Um, but really defining what it's going to take for this person to do a great job, that's where we can bring in the other two things. Okay, so let's say it is actually a sales role and we do need them to hit 100,000. Okay, now let's talk about the territory and let's bring in the style. What is the right style? What is the how to hit that 100,000 in
Sure.
sales, right? They may say, must be able to do this and this. Great. So we document must be able to do this and this because we don't have the training available to do that. So that becomes a skill, right?
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
but by really defining the expectations and how they're going to be measured, what that does as a recruiter and as an interviewer, you've kind of set the floor for the skills, right? They have to come to the table with the skills and experience to hit those numbers on their own. There's not
Mhm.
enough time to learn on the job fast enough to hit that 1 year goal. There may
Yeah.
be things that are out there over 2 or 3 years that they can develop those skills over time and be able to hit them. And so the real reason we need to know those 1 year expectations is that becomes our floor. That becomes our benchmark for everybody that we screen, everybody we visit with before we can even think about bringing them forward to this company. Employees have to have done this before in their career.
Oh, you said something in there about, everybody's used to hearing like KPIs, or I know you're an EOS guy, so
Mhm.
scorecard,
Right.
and you said you hope there's numbers tied to these expectations. What do you mean by that?
An employee needs to be able to self-assess how they're doing before a manager tells them they're not doing the right thing, right?
Uh-huh.
So
Uh-huh.
if and perceptions can be different, right? If an organization says we expect the new employee to grow the business, or the other employer says we expect the new employee to add $100,000 in business, um, $100,000 is very clear, and you should be at $50,000 by the midpoint, or at least have that in the pipeline to be able to hit the goal. Whereas growing the business, it could be $500, and yep, checkbox, I grew the business,
Sure.
right? So
Sure.
you want to make and that becomes a really, and we all know there's organizations that have horrible annual reviews because employees come into that review thinking they actually did okay, and out of nowhere they find out they weren't. And a lot of it's because of the misalignment in the actual results they were asking for. They were too vague.
How many times do you see when a review is given and there's expectations on that review? There's 10 different check boxes, whatever they are. The employee hits 9 of those check boxes, but doesn't get a raise and is expected to do better. And the employee is kind of going, well, wait a minute. I hit 9 of these things. What are you talking about? What more? I did what you said I was supposed to do, or at least I did 90% of it.
Mhm.
But I'm in a sense getting punished for it. Do you see
Mhm.
that a lot or
It happens a lot. It
yeah, I
really
bet.
does. And a lot of it comes down to that misalignment in the first place, right? The manager may be looking for certain things that aren't on the HR provided form at the end of the day, right?
That's another bumper sticker. Yeah.
And the other part of it is very rarely is cultural challenges part of an annual review unless it's a bad situation, but it's not part of the form, right? The form is based on clear expectations that they can legally talk about that day, right? But when there's cultural challenges, more often than not, when I hear about people that are checking the boxes, there's probably a very strong misalignment in culture or style,
Yeah.
meaning they don't fit the culture or the way that they're adding that business or the way they're doing their job doesn't fit with how they want it done.
Yeah.
But the number was hit, so they checked the box.
Yeah. I got it. That's Man, this is awesome stuff. This is so, I always talk a lot about in this podcast about technology and AI and how things are really moving at lightning fast speeds. I see a situation like this where you're trying to fit the right people with the right organization. You almost have to use a company like Egg One Source because otherwise, it does feel like you just go through and you're checking these boxes off and you don't have the right culture. There's not the right style there. You're not fitting the right expectations. Skills, we can all understand your last pillar. I get that one. But yeah, I mean, it's dangerous when you're just aligning this resume with this organization's job description and marry them together. Maybe that's we can get back to maybe that's why in agriculture we're seeing a huge high percentage of low retention.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. That is exactly right. When especially for these organizations that are in rural communities with a limited talent pool to begin with, when somebody comes in whose resume, like you said, the resume aligns with the job description, let's go. But
Mhm.
but the culture and the style could be totally misaligned and it creates turnover very, very fast. There's a saying out there's not a saying. It was actually a study. It might have been done by Career Builder a few years ago.
Okay.
Maybe it was 10 years ago, back in their heyday of job boards. But the average employee starts thinking about their next career move within 10 days of starting a new job. Okay.
Wow.
And
That's
so
crazy.
there's some reality to that. They aren't necessarily going to change jobs right away. They aren't going to necessarily hit the job boards right away, but they've basically determined if they want to stick with this organization short term or long term. But if you think about it, most organizations have 1 week of onboarding and 1 week of you drifting that next week on your own, and that level of support and how you feel after that first week following your onboarding week determines if you see this partnership as a long term or a short term thing. And that's why, we work with organizations and we say, look, onboarding is a minimum of a 12-month process, if not a 24-month process, right? You are doing everything you can. You have to, you are recruiting through year one of an employee is a
Mhm.
better way to think about that, right? But
Right.
so many organizations say, oh, onboarding's done. Good luck out. Here's your plat book and here's the keys to the truck. Good luck out there,
Yeah,
right?
right, right. Well, and it's onboarding is sort of a scary word for everybody because it seems so technical and HR-y, but it's no different than if I were to welcome you into my house, Mark, and I'd say, "Hey, Mark, welcome aboard. By the way, here's where the restroom is. Feel free to use it whenever you want. You don't have you can leave your shoes on. We don't care around here. It's no big deal. Everything in the fridge is yours. Mi casa, su casa. Yeah, by the way, we're gonna have chicken tonight on the grill.
Mm-hmm.
Just makes you feel more okay. I feel at
Exactly.
home. I feel better
Exactly.
versus Mark. Come on in, and then you come in, you sit down at the table, and I'm like, oh man. Why are you wearing your shoes, dude? What are you doing? And you're like,
Right.
well, you never told me if I'm supposed to take them on or off. It's
Mm-hmm.
it's really, really simple and welcoming, and, I call it just getting back to it's once again, it's the football mentality, getting back to the basics, and onboarding can be a scary technical HR word, but it really just means, let's just be welcoming to people, Let them know that here's kind of the expectations that we have, but, we wanna let you know what those are up front for you so you feel at home here. It's
Right.
that easy.
And in your description, what you did without realizing it was your onboarding focused on the culture of your house,
Right.
not the skills and the things that I had to do my first month on the job.
Oh, dude, I'm a firm believer in that. Huge. I
Right.
mean, I'm the CEO of my own company now, and I'm starting to get employees, and the number one rule that I have for myself is really, I wanna make sure that you feel like I care about you, because I do. I am so grateful for my people because they are so much smarter than me at certain aspects, and I wanna let them know that each and every almost every interaction I have with my people, whether it's an email or a phone call, I'm like, "Thank you. Thank you so much. That is awesome. That is great." Even if it's something I'm not all that happy with, I'm like, "You know what? I appreciate you listening." It's once again, it's simple and easy, and it's not that freaking hard, folks. It's really not that hard.
But it's so easily overlooked. Going back to the job description example, where most onboarding is focused on what you must do and what you must never do. But it's not about the culture of the organization that truly teaches you how to truly work within that environment, and makes you, and honestly, it also removes buyer's remorse, if anything, right?
Yeah, sure, sure. And it eliminates that 10-day window of that stat that you just said when
Mm-hmm.
somebody gets into a job and they're like, in 10 days, they're already thinking about that next
Right.
step.
Exactly.
And we've gotten in this weird little, I don't know if it's a culture thing, but it's during COVID, the buzzwords were the employees have all the advantage. They have all this advantage because everybody needs employees. We're going to hire anybody with a pulse, everybody said. And then after that, it was like, okay, now the employers are getting back the leverage. And it's like, stop with all that
Right.
BS. What are we doing here? We're supposed to be on the same team. Nobody has leverage over anybody else. I think back of all the great times that I was in the working world, uh, it was all just a matter of I knew that somebody cared about me. I knew they gave a crap. And
Right.
it's contagious. It doesn't matter how much money you make, whether you made a bonus or not. If you cared about me and you were honest with me and you actually talked to me like an adult, we're good. I'll be with you forever. And, you know, who's got leverage and who doesn't? Who cares? That's meaningless. It shouldn't matter. That's no one has leverage over anybody. We're all human beings here. We're all the
Exactly.
way I look at it is we're all answering to the same God, right? And
Mm-hmm.
he's the one in charge. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to go down that road. I go down on a lot on this podcast, but
Sure.
he's in charge. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, man, I love what you guys are doing. This is super interesting stuff. And for those out there looking to either make a career change or if you're an organization that really wants to hire the right person, look Mark up. I mean, like I said, you've seen more resumes and you fit more people. You're just good at what you do. We all think we're good at hiring people, but we're not. We got to leave it up to the experts.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't want a plumber to give me open heart surgery, right?
Exactly. I
Yeah.
agree.
Yeah. So you guys really, you know your stuff. You said you've been in business for 20 some years, right? So you've been doing this a while.
Yes, we've been in business for almost 23 years. So we've been around for a while.
Yeah. That's experience, my friend. What do you think before we kind of wind things down here, what do you think the future of jobs looks like? There's a lot of talk about AI taking over a lot of these things that may a lot of these jobs that maybe are sort of mundane and specifically data entry stuff that AI can do. But what's your future outlook look like here in the next 5 years? Let's just keep it at 5 years. I don't like long-term visions.
Right. I would say that, yeah, AI is going to affect everything, even our business, but not how people think. I go back to AI. The organizations and the people that embrace AI as a tool to help things get better and make things easier are going to do great. The people that see AI as an enemy are probably the ones that should be worried about AI being the enemy, right? I have no doubt that um, back in the early 2000s when Microsoft created Excel, there was probably thousands of accountants that lost their jobs. But accountants never went away. The
Sure.
accountants then embraced that, going, holy cow, this is going to make my life easier. Tax season might go down from 100 hours a week to 50 hours a week if I embrace this new tool. This is awesome, right? And and I look at that going forward, whether it's our business or other organizations we're working with, removing the At the end of the day, removing the mundane part of your job is probably where AI can be of assistance and improve your quality of life and improve the quality of life of your employees so they're doing the things they want to do and are more enjoyable going forward. And I think that's the transition that needs to happen. Because at the end of the day, especially in agriculture, I know there's other industries that are similar, but relationships are still critical in this industry as a whole.
Mhm.
At the end of the day, AI cannot replace that, right? So it's still coming down to hiring the right people that fit your culture, that have the right style to do what needs to be done, how you want to do it, because it all comes down to relationships, whether that's with internal or external customers. AI can't replace that relationship.
No. I just met with my accountant earlier this week, and, we kinda talked a little bit about AI, and the thing about it that's different is I think you nailed it with relationships, and the relationship that I have with my accountant is just that, it's a relationship. I let him be the expert at what he does, meaning he not only just does my books, but he understands and does research and learns and grows and develops his craft. He's
Mm-hmm.
really, really good at it. And he
Mm-hmm.
tells me about it. And it's like, I don't even know. I don't want to know that. I want to rely on you. And
Right.
I think that's maybe a message for leaders out there as well. None of us are all encompassing people. We all have our special skill that we're really, really good at. Hone that craft, like get really good at it. Another example of this is my daughter's about to go to college, and we're trying to find scholarships for her, and we just hired a consultant that does that marries students with scholarships because
Mm-hmm.
they're really good at it. And I'm a firm believer in surrounding yourself with people that are really good at certain skills and letting them do their thing. Don't try to be everything for everyone. You can't. And it's no different than what you said before. Like if you're looking to try to marry an employee with an organization, call Mark and his team. They're good at what they do. And don't try to do it yourself because I hate to say it, you're just not good at it. You're not going to be good at it. So I'm pumping you guys up. I
I
normally don't do
appreciate
this
that.
on the
Yeah.
podcast, but yeah, no, super riveting conversation, Mark. So I really appreciate you coming on, man. It's a good connection to know, and anything I come across, I'll definitely send people your way or organizations your way. Tell people how to get in touch with you, how to get in touch with your company.
Sure. Probably the easiest way is our website is ag1source.com. That's AG, the numeral one,
Mhm.
source.com. And we have contact us, and my contact information is on there as well. So we have an entire team. So if you reach out to us, we will be putting you in touch with the best person to assist you because our team has specialties. We have agronomy, we have livestock, we have people with different backgrounds. Whether you're a candidate or an employer, we'll put you with the right person that can best assist you going forward.
Awesome, man. Well, like I said, I can't thank you enough. Grateful for you. Grateful for the connection. I know we will stay in touch here through the years. So I appreciate you. Thank you so
Thank
much
you,
for coming
Joe.
on.
Thank you very
Yep.
much. I really enjoyed it.
Hey, folks, thanks for tuning into the Germinate podcast. If you found value in today's episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with others in the industry. And join me next time as we continue to explore the innovations and strategies shaping the future of agriculture and business. Until then, keep growing, keep innovating, and keep germinating your success.